welcome to the short of it. Here we are.
Here we are.
Yeah, speaking of short, I'm Tony, and you are
Rochelle.
Also short. We should add that you're also short.
Same.
Is that the is that the reason for the title?
Yeah.
Yes, because it's short people making a podcast.
We have short fuses. We have short ideas. It's just a whole thing. No, I mean the short of
bus
it is
I rode when I was in school.
the yellow one.
Yeah, sure.
with the bubbles on the side.
Yeah. Probably get canceled for that.
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah.
But anyways,
one of those schools with buses.
The short of it is we celebrate short films, short filmmakers, not short content creators, because that's what we are. Content creators with short
I'm not a content
projects. But today we're going to do things a little bit differently because we have somebody who is more knowledgeable than I am about anything that has to do with filmmaking, because he is also, as is my co-host, a Fitchburg State University professor. Zak Lee, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Yeah, Zach.
Are you scared?
Not particularly,
Okay,
no.
you will be.
I'm scared.
Not yet.
Not yet. So, first of all, just tell our audience who you are, what you do, and your love of film.
That's
a
assuming that he
terribly
loves,
open-ended question.
that he
It really
loves
is.
film.
It really is.
Why do you love film, Zach?
I know.
Do you love
Seriously.
film, Zach?
Yeah.
Or do you hate film?
Yeah, maybe we should start there. Yes or no's. Do you like film?
I'm going to go with yes on
Okay.
that.
Is there anything about film that you hate? That's not a yes or no. Okay, never mind. Tell us about yourself.
Yeah. My name is Zach. I teach at Fitchburg State University, as has already been discussed. I don't know what else to say at this point in time.
It's okay. We'll get to it.
Yeah. Tell you. Yeah. I mean, like it's a rough question.
Yeah.
Tell me about yourself. You know,
How did you become a filmmaker?
That's a more helpful question.
Okay.
Thank you. It's something I fell into, I think. As a kid, I always was drawn to art stuff. So I was always an arty kid, and I was definitely that kid that drew and caused trouble when I should have been doing other things. And that then segued later, flashing forward many years, to elementary school. I think my friend had a Super 8 camera that we tried to make movies on, but failed catastrophically. And this was around the same time VHS stuff was popular. So a couple of my friends had cameras, and we would just make very stupid short films, essentially, and doing like linear editing, meaning dual VCR style in real time cuts. And so
ABC rolls, I remember them greatly.
It's if you really want to appreciate editing, learn how to edit that way, and then everything after that's a miracle.
Yes. Oh my goodness.
And so that then, in high school, I ended up kind of gravitating again towards more art stuff. I ended up doing a lot of things: ceramics, drawing, eventually photography. And one of the ways that we could get out of taking the English class our senior year was there was a film studies course essentially in my high school. And me and another friend of mine who I think were, without throwing either of us under the bus, were underperforming in high school. And
I think I was too for some time.
yeah. And so
Rochelle was a straight A student.
Yeah.
She'll talk about that later.
Yeah. I was not. And so we kind of cajoled our junior English teacher, because you had to have a certain grade point average to get into this film studies course. And we sort of had this brilliant idea that watching movies was more fun than writing papers, not realizing that, of course, we would do both. And so we ended up taking this film appreciation, film studies course that was really eye-opening. I'd always been drawn to films. I'd always, I was a latchkey kid. And so like I grew up, the TV raised me, so like I was one of those kids also.
Me too.
And discovered things like Siskel and Ebert very young. And so like that was sort of all that formative stuff. And then so in high school, I finally took this sort of really official first film studies course where I kind of understood like, oh, like film can be an art thing. It's not just this entertainment thing. And there's like serious thought behind it. And there's a whole history, and look at these films from other countries, and this is amazing. And so it was really eye-opening. And fortuitously at that time, I was also working in a bookstore in my local town, and one of my coworkers was a bit older than me. and had sort of been an academic burnout. He was on the process of getting his PhD, kind of stepped out, and like a lot of people that work in bookstores, was just really overeducated and erudite, but was extraordinarily brilliant when it came to film. And so like once he kind of found out I was interested in film, he just wanted to talk about it endlessly and said, you should watch this, you should watch this, you should watch this. And he had exceptional taste, and so like really kind of mentored me in that way also. So I really had these like sort of two people, kind of my senior year in high school, sort of teaching me about film. And what's crazy is that not just, there's actually three of us that came out of that. There's one guy that ahead of me, named Nick Ravitch, who went on to do a bunch of stuff for PBS. He does a famous art show out of Philadelphia. And so he was mentored by the same two people the year ahead of me. And then my friend Mike and I, Mike later went on to produce a bunch of films, including like American Fiction and things like that, or was one of the producers on that film, does a lot of commercial work. He was the guy that sort of ended up in that film class with me. So like it was really, I think, for the three of us, because we all knew each other, really formative and sort of like changed the trajectory of our lives fairly dramatically. And so, sorry, I didn't know if that was like a cut. I was like, am I rambling? Okay. Like Oliver was
Pay no attention to anyone except for those at the table.
Well, Oliver's in my eye line, so.
He's gonna hide.
Come
now.
on, Ollie.
First rule, Oliver, don't make eye contact with never. So, I from there kind of took some time off of underperformed in high school, and took some time and just basically worked full time in the bookstore, learning more about film, and sort of was really self-taught at that point. And so I read everything I could on film, every film history book, everything about anything, and watched as much stuff like as I could. And fortuitously, again, next door to the bookstore was a video store, and I was good friends with people that worked there. And so I would get the kind of the same, I was getting a lot of people recommending stuff to me. And so I just watched a prodigious amount of films, I think is what I could say. And
Let me just tell our audience, video stores, that's where you actually get in your car and you go to a store, and there are like boxes of films everywhere. And if you don't rewind, you get paid with an extra fee. This is for this generation that doesn't understand the power of Blockbuster video. Okay,
Right.
sorry.
yeah, no, it's all good. And I would argue to this day that video stores are superior to any streaming service.
Yes.
Just for the curatorial, just like having conversations with people and like seeing like, I don't know, seeing things next to each other and like making decisions off cover art and things like that. I thought that all stuff has been unfortunately lost. But anyway, it was a well-stocked video store. You know, it was like a lot of video stores, like the Blockbusters, didn't necessarily have big foreign sections. This video store happened to be a bit more independent. It was a Video Smith, and it had
Oh, yeah, I love videos.
had just a really a good eclectic mix of films. And so I was able to watch, again, like independent films and a lot of foreign films, and not just American mainstream stuff. And again, that was sort of what people were feeding me at that time anyways. And so I kind of just that's what I did for essentially 3 years, is I watched movies and read about movies and just sort of taught myself as much as I could. And again, was being mentored by this exceptional guy, Bill McAndrews, who sadly passed away a few years ago, but was, again, like critically important to, I think, me and some people studying film at that time. And so I decided, I was living in Massachusetts at this time, sort of having grown up on both coasts, more or less. That's a long story, which we don't need to get into today because we don't have time for that one.
We have time.
East Coast, West Coast.
Yeah.
Which one's your preference?
West Coast. I can answer that for you.
Totally. On a humid day, the answer is obvious. So I moved back to California at that point for like the third time or something, with the idea that I was going to go to college at this point, and had to sort of make up for my, again, lackluster performance in high school. And so moved to California, where I still had a parent. I was able to have them claim me on their tax forms, which made me back into a California resident, which means I could go to California schools on the California tuition, which is, this is pre-Arnold Schwarzenegger destroying it.
Yes.
But the California, for those of you who don't know, the California university system was spectacular and had just incredibly good schools for like dirt cheap. Like, so my first I had to go to community college for a couple of years to make up for my high school performance. I never took the SATs, and I was never
lackluster is what
I was
he
never
said.
going to get into. I was never going to get into a good college, given the GP. I never took the SATs, and my GP I think was out of high school like maybe a 1.
Damn.
I don't believe that.
So
Damn.
believe me. Because I decided at one point that high schools were just meant to keep people like me off the street during the day, and that I shouldn't take anything they say seriously. And I did no homework, and basically was a pain in everyone's rear end, except for my art teachers, God bless them, who gave me a place to be creative and encouraged me. So anyway, I moved back to California. And immediately started going to a community college, which was Foothill Community College, which is in lovely Los Altos, California. It's a really, really beautiful campus. And it just so happened I started taking film studies again because that's what I do. And weirdly enough, because this is how California is, the guy who taught my film history courses at Foothill was Bart De Palma, who was Brian De Palma's brother, and who did all the art department stuff on all of Brian De Palma's films.
Wow.
Because...
That's just
California, because everyone wants to be there,
Yeah.
you know? Yeah. And so that's just sort of what happened. So like, I learned a lot from him. He was an interesting guy. Had a lot of, like just crazy stories about, he would like half his class would be like, okay, here's this film history thing. And then you go, and then I remember this, we were playing Trivial Pursuit at Don Johnson's house. And you're just like, what is going on here? And then like, so it was a lot of that.
Don Johnson.
Yeah, it's a whole thing apparently. Anyway, so that was cool. And so I kind of, from there, was able to eventually like get into film school and started actually like making stuff again. I was making little things here and there. But once I transferred to UC Santa Cruz, which had just basically took their films program away from the theater department. So like I was one of the first years there. It was actually a standalone film program, and it was a production program. And so like I just went in there, and I was just so like, again, at that point, super excited to be there. And it was really kind of a cutthroat competitive film school at the time, at least in my opinion. There's people laughing out there somewhere, I'm sure. But to get into a film production course at UC Santa Cruz at that time, you could not pre-register for the course. What would happen is like 100 people literally would show up, and they would give you 2 hours to write something. And I forget if there was parameters that they gave you or not. And then based on the quality of your writing in that 2 hours, you got into the class or you didn't. So it was like, and it would whittle it down from like 100 to like maybe like 16 people,
Wow.
And so like just getting into the production courses was like, you had to really want it, you had to have, thankfully, side note here, before working in that bookstore, I worked in a library. And so I've been in, further backstory, my mother was an adjunct English college professor for a long time. So I was pretty well read by the time I got into college, even with my crappy grades. Like I knew how to write at that point well enough. And so when I was sort of in the situation where I had to like do these writing to get into the class, I was fairly confident at that point. And again, I did really want to be there. I'd spent a lot of time kind of working up to getting there. So I ended up like, just started making films and then doing production. And this is all basically on 16 millimeter stuff. And what I found is that a lot of people were sort of afraid of the camera. I think you got like kids today often complain that like somehow Gen X automatically knew how to use analog equipment. We did not.
Right. That's right.
And we certainly, and loading cameras was as obtuse then and abstract as it is today. But I had some, I think, mechanical affinity for various reasons. Again, more side stories we don't need to get into. I used to take apart everything as a child and put it back together again. I come from a family of engineers, and so this was encouraged.
My dad was an engineer.
Yeah.
I did the same
so
thing.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
Like this
How
is
cool was that?
It's the best, right?
Yeah.
And so you get obviously you get a lot of confidence in your hands.
Yeah.
And so when I saw the 16 millimeter camera for the first time, it was like, oh, I got this, right? I'm not scared of this thing at all. This is awesome. I get it. Yeah. Light meter. Yeah, we're on. It's on. And because other people in my class were so terrified of it, I ended up shooting stuff for everybody, which was awesome. That's how I kind of became a cinematographer. I started just because I was not afraid to load a camera. Anybody would let me shoot their film regardless of what was going to come out, and so you're experimenting on everyone's film, and it's like, it's great because it's not your money. And so I and again, like I had a background in art, so like I kind of knew how to frame stuff, even if I didn't understand anything else. And I at least had an eye for composition at that point, or good enough to kind of get by. And yeah, I did that. Where am I? What was that question? How did I become a filmmaker?
It was like, how did you
we're
become a
good.
filmmaker?
Here.
But I actually want to highlight really an important point, which is that you took a class in high school to get out of English.
Yes.
Which you then needed desperately in order to get into your film classes
Correct.
in college, and you were actually good at writing. So why the hate on the English?
Yeah. That's a good question also.
I think it's a great question.
I think it is too.
Yeah,
I think-
Congratulations.
Thank you.
I think
You deserve to get off the yellow bus.
Nice.
I've never been particularly good
No
at
offense to
doing
yellow buses.
what is expected of me or what I should be doing. Like that was always a problem. So I liked reading, and I always wrote. And but I didn't really like being told what to write or what to read. I kind of wanted to just do my own thing. And I think like in English, I think that I sort of felt, and this is going to come across kind of jerky, and I don't have a better way of phrasing it.
Do it.
Despite my lackluster performance in high school, it wasn't because I wasn't capable of doing it. It was really, I made a conscious decision not to do it because
That's hilarious.
for a lot of complicated reasons we don't need to get into. But again, if you present yourself as an authority to me, I'm going to reject you. That's just the way it is. And
I think that's a fundamental principle by which we should all live.
Yeah.
If you present
And
yourself
yet-
as an authority.
yeah.
You both are professors now.
Yes,
So
but
That's why.
Neither of us are authorities.
Right,
Ask either one of us.
exactly.
So I think like I just sort of wanted to do what I wanted to do in my own terms, and like So it wasn't necessarily that I hated on English. It just seemed like watching movies seemed more fun at that point in my life, and I hadn't been doing well in my English class my junior year in high school. I think I just didn't want to read the books they wanted to read. I probably read 100 books that semester, and none of them were the ones that they wanted me to, Yeah. And I tended to write kind of essays that were, I think in retrospect, I would find them funny now, but like clearly were always about how much smarter I thought I was than everybody else. And,
Those are the best.
and so
Do you have any
I hope not.
remnants of
Yeah.
I know.
any of the films that you made or any of the writing that you did?
No, I have stuff going back to college, but all the high school stuff, I think, VHS tapes die after a while, and
They
so
do.
and I don't really have any of that stuff, and I think it's probably for the best.
No, I want to see this.
So it was
Be kind, rewind.
it was not good. It was objectively not good, but it's sort of like you have to learn somehow, and I think it was just like one of those things, and so whatever. Yeah.
It's almost like an instrument, right? Like, I know many parents who are going through this, their kids decide that I'm going to be a musician. I don't need to know math and that whole thing. And, but it's really fascinating that you had this love from such an early age, or at least that you saw it from such an early age. But you have a favorite film of Zak's.
Oh, I don't know if I have a favorite film because Zak doesn't share his work really.
Yeah, notoriously.
Notoriously, as is evidenced by the fact that Zak was too busy to provide a clip
That's right.
Today.
We're gonna have to put it in
for
afterwards.
the show.
The short of it.
So the short of it, yeah,
Where
the
we
short
talk
of it.
about
So since
certain things.
Zak did not provide a clip,
That's correct.
I mentioned that I had seen Ghost Bike, and that we could possibly show a clip of that. But I also remember this other thing that you did, which I thought was really cool, and you actually did show this. You have a friend who sends you objects that he makes, and then
Yep.
you make films.
Yeah.
Out of them, and so I actually would rather hear about that than. I mean, I'm happy to talk about Ghost Bike because it's a brilliant avant-garde film that really did not get its due.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I felt the same way.
Yeah, absolutely. It's phenomenal. But I am interested in that sort of collaborative work that you do.
Yeah, so the film you're talking about is called The Game. It's on a Vimeo page somewhere.
Oh, we'll find it.
I sent V everything. So
Okay.
I sent V. It was on the link I sent V, so you have access to it. It's all there.
Okay.
So that is a collaboration with my good friend Mike Lebenz, who's also I think an art, very much an artist, probably more so than me. And he and I are really I'm losing the words all of a sudden. Sympathetic to each other's work. I think we collaborate sort of well with each other, and we have a collaboration going back like many years. So he's a friend of mine. I met him in 1996, I want to say, working in yet another bookstore. And so, which that's my other career path, right?
Right.
So he and I were working in a bookstore together, and he had, I thought, just like a really, like, he looked cool. Like he's taller than me, and he had like just really amazing hair, like just giant hair. And I was super stoked on that. And he and I both like this band, the Melvins, which is a stoner metal / doom metal band. And so we kind of started talking about that, and then found we had a lot of things in common, including, I think, like an appreciation and draw towards knowledge on the fringe, I think is what I would say. It's like sort of like the more like esoteric a philosopher was, sort of the more like forbidden knowledge was, like that was the stuff we were kind of really into. And he had just a jaw-droppingly good record collection. I think he had well over 1,000 LPs, vinyl. And
vinyl records are things that are round that you actually had to physically put on a machine, and then you take a needle and then you put it on, and somehow the sound appears.
Yes.
Magic. It's called magic.
And I will argue here again that they sound significantly
So
better
much
than
better.
any MP3, and I could
Fun
prove
fact
that
number 1.
empirically because there's just more information and bandwidth. But whatever, we don't need to go there right now. So, so he and I were really kind of bonded over music, and he kind of turned me on to a lot of music, and he was really knowledgeable about art. And so we just sort of just did a bunch of random crazy things together, and including like trying to like write these like weird grant proposals and stuff that made absolutely zero sense. Like, you know, so like we were both sort of on that avant-garde wavelength for sure. And both, again, have an appreciation for avant-garde art in all forms. And he really, again, I think like opened my eyes to a lot of stuff as well. So it was really cool to kind of have those conversations with him. So we've been doing stuff literally since 1996 off and on. And then in different forms. And so we were both living in Santa Cruz at the time. I ended up moving back to Boston. He ended up coming and living out in Northampton for a while around 2001. So we continued to kind of do some stuff when he was out here, including making films together and that kind of thing. He's actually been in a lot of my films. Does
he still have the big hair?
No, I haven't seen him in a while, but I think he grew it long and sort of more straight for a while. So I'm not sure where it's at right now. I think last time I saw him was a bit shorter. And he had a handlebar mustache also, like a Raleigh Finger style mustache and giant hair. So it was, and he's like, he's slighter than I am and taller. So he just like looked like, it's just like, you just looked at that guy and you're like, I want to be friends with that guy. And I am. And so where was I? Oh yeah. So we were making films in Northampton. Like, so weirdly enough. So, side note, a guy who's in Ghost Bike and sort of there's a group scene there, this dude, Benno Chapman. And Benno, Mike Lebenz, and I all worked in the same bookstore in Santa Cruz, California. And so Benno and Mike have been in like basically all of my films at one point or another, going back from my very first films in college. So, and Benno and I, of course, both live in like a mile from each other now. So anyway, so Mike was out in Northampton for a while. We were kind of collaborating on stuff here and there. Then he ended up moving back to Santa Cruz and then eventually up to Portland. So like, and then COVID happened and everything fell off the earth. And so kind of post-COVID or during part of the COVID thing, he at one point was like, hey, here's a proposal for you. I'm going to send you some art. And he does a lot of art that's collecting found objects. And he's been doing that forever. He has an impressive collection of road metal and like, you know, like just things you find on the street that have been changed and altered and decayed. And like he's also just a phenomenal painter. You've actually seen one of his paintings in my house. It's the woman holding the egg tray.
Oh, wow.
That's one of his paintings.
Okay. Cool.
And so
You don't have a picture of that?
I never took any pictures at Zak's
yeah,
house.
yeah. So
It would have been great for our audience.
I know,
to see
it would have
that.
been awesome. Maybe Zak will snap one.
maybe I can send you a picture.
Because he doesn't want
We'll
to share
get
his
V on
work.
that. V,
Yeah,
we need a picture of the
But I'll promote my friend Mike. Yeah, I think he should be promoted. He should. And so he was like, I'm going to send you one of my, sort of found object artworks, and I want you to make a film about it. And that was it. And so I took it and looked at it and like just was inspired by what was there. And I, as Rochelle knows, I'm a cyclist. And so one of the things I do when I'm cycling is I look at the world a lot. Like that's one of the things I like to. Walking and cycling are the best ways for me to find ideas for films, because it's a place to kind of empty your mind and meditate a little bit.
I do canoeing.
Canoeing's good. Yeah, same deal.
I love canoeing.
100% same deal, right? And
or is it kayaking? I have a I don't know what I have. Is it kayak?
Yeah.
Okay.
Regardless of the type of boat, as long as it's not motorized.
Peggy told me it's a kayak.
Right.
If there's a motor,
yeah,
it
changes everything, right? You have to be a lot more attentive in motorized vehicles,
That's
you have to be attentive on a bicycle.
You got to worry about hitting something if you have a motor. We're way off track.
So I spent like a summer just kind of cycling around and looking at the world, and sort of that's what all my location scouting for that film was. And so then when I was ready to shoot, I went and shot this film just based on things I've been looking at for a couple of months, and was just sort of watching them change. And when they kind of got to where I thought they would look cool, I shot them. So a lot of some of it's my backyard, but a lot of it's sort of just my neighborhood and around my neighborhood. And then I, as part of the deal, I scored that film also. Because on top of making films like Rochelle, I'll call her out also on this moment, I'm also a musician. Rochelle's much, much better than I am.
Wait. What, how do you figure?
I can just tell.
What?
He's right. I can tell a lot of things just by looking at you two. He's right.
So,
oh, Peggy liked that one. Yeah. Of course.
So I composed is a generous term for what I did. I made music for that film. Also, I think I played four instruments on that score. So, it's really simple.
You get to learn a lot about people when you start a podcast.
Yeah, it's kind of amazing.
So I did that, and that was the whole thing with that.
Wow. Yeah.
So we're getting a little bit. We're heading towards the end.
Welcome to my world of being off track.
The other thing we wanted to talk to you about today is the whole kind of business or work around film festivals, because we understand that you've had a lot of work in film festivals, and as a person who has entered film festivals, I've done well with some, and others. Like Boston does not love me at all. I'm not sure why. Anyways, but
wait, isn't that the festival that you used to run? Aren't you friends with Jack Rebney?
No.
Lies. Just lies.
Didn't you meet Jack Rebney?
No. The film festival, like
Did you meet Oprah?
I've never met Oprah.
Just had to ask.
Yeah, no, I think it's
you've been everywhere.
It's worth that. Yeah, I mean, I would say I haven't been in a lot of festivals. I've been in some festivals. A lot's a big word. For full disclosure and just for trying to be honest and keep myself on task here, I sort of started with, I used to work for a nonprofit film arts organization called Central Productions Incorporated that was started by Nick Ravitch and Mike Bose, who I mentioned earlier, who took the same film classes together, and Bill McAndrew was one of the founding members of that also. And part of what we did was we started at some point this thing called the Boston Cinema Census, which was a juried one-night film festival for New England produced shorts. So that I started that in like 2000, actually before that, 99. And then when I was still living in California, when I moved back to Massachusetts for like the 105th time, we started formally doing this sort of film festival thing. We ran for about a decade doing that. And then sort of through that, I also did a lot of work with the Independent Film Festival of Boston. So for them, I've juried their short film competition before. I did a lot of Q&As and introductions for films at the festival, just because I could work the Brattle Theater, which sort of freed up some of the Brattle staff to do that. I did some other stuff at the Somerville Theater for them. And then I also did, I moderated Q&As with filmmakers and moderated some panel discussions for them. So that's sort of my official tie to the festival world. And then, of course, I've done, as you said, I've had films in festivals and entered festivals. And I used to always go to South by Southwest out in Austin, Texas also, just because that was sort of one of the premier independent film festivals for a long time. and would just sort of watch the short film packages primarily because that was sort of what I was doing at that time. And so I really tried to just develop a base of knowledge around short films and how programming worked during that period of time. So I don't know if I answered the question or not. I sort of gave a general overview.
Yeah,
I feel like there's a specific question there somewhere.
As a juror, if you could talk to our audience about what are film festivals looking for?
Yeah.
Like, what works, what doesn't work, what have you said, like, what the hell? And then, this needs to, talk a little bit about the jury part of it.
Yeah. It depends. Like also, I think the broadest answer that's maybe the most helpful.
Thank you.
Is
Rochelle. I know. Sorry.
All festivals are programming for what they believe their audience is, which means that every festival has a unique audience that they're trying to cater to. So, some festivals might be more quote unquote family friendly. Some might be a little bit more on the edge and a bit more cutting. Some might be more indie focused. Some might be more, focused for like a more mainstream audience. Like it really depends on what the festival is going for. And so what's crazy about the festival and what I always try to think about from the programming and jury point of view is that when you are running a festival, you have no films, right? When you start. And what you have is a theater or a group of theaters booked for a day or a week or 3 weeks or however long your festival happens to run. You have so many screens and you have a lot of money invested in, and this might not also be public knowledge, but a lot of festivals are nonprofit. And certainly all the ones that I dealt with were nonprofits. So they're not raking in money. No one's getting huge paychecks. Most of the festivals that I dealt with were volunteer run primarily. You might have a couple programs, like big festivals like Sundance and Southwest obviously have people on payroll. But a lot of festivals are just people doing it for the love of doing it. And so you have all this sort of money laid out for theater rentals, and potentially you made deals with hotels, and potentially made deals with transportation, and potentially you made deals with caterers. And so you now have to entice an audience to your festival, but you don't have any films, right? So like this is where you start. And so you're kind of, I don't want to, desperate is the wrong word, but you really want to make sure that you're selecting films that are going to reward the audience that comes. And so you have to, again, sort of imagine what your audience is and say, I need to make sure the films I choose are the films that my audience is expecting. Now, when you're an emerging festival, that's different, right? Like if it's the first time you've ever had your festival, and you don't really have a voice yet, or you really don't have a style of thing that you're doing. You might have a thing that you want to be doing, but you haven't proven any success yet. Those festivals are easier to get into as a filmmaker because they're drawing less films because they're not as established, and they're trying to figure out what they want to do. So they're going to be a lot more open to what kind of films they're accepting. When you get to sort of the tip of the spear festivals like South by Southwest, I mean, just mathematically as a filmmaker, you're not getting in. Right, they're going to accept maybe 1% of the films that are submitted, and they're going to reject 99% of it because everyone submits to South by Southwest, and everyone submits to Sundance, and everyone submits to Cannes, which is free, by the way, if you're a short filmmaker. And so the competition for those festivals is really, really, really tough. And so, again, back to the jury question, what you're looking for really is this film, once you're established, once you sort of feel you have an audience, is this film going to be sort of in line with kind of the stuff we were playing last year? Because I want my audience to come back, because I want to make sure that I can rent this theater again, or I want to make sure that whatever people I've partnered with are going to I need to be successful to do that. I need to pack the theater, right? If I have really good films and no one comes and no one makes any money off of it, and the theater loses money and you lose money, like obviously you're not going to go on the next year. So there really is this pressure to have the right kind of film. And so a lot of programmers talk to each other, and like it's a small world. I remember like once being at South by Southwest, and I was like, at a table, I happen to know the lead programmer for Independent Film Festival of Boston, who's a friend of mine. He's not doing that work anymore, but the people that run Independent Film Festival of Boston are still very nice people. Shout out Brian and Nancy.
Brian.
And Nancy.
So I wasn't done.
They've done phenomenal work there. So I was at this, random table, like in between panels or something at South by Southwest. And it was like, okay, so that's person's lead programmer for Independent Film Festival of Boston. That's the lead programmer for Tennessee. That's the lead program. It was like, oh, okay. Like this world is very, very tiny.
Yeah.
And so back to the jury question. Sorry, I'm kind of skipping around a little bit. trying to keep focused here, but like as a jury, like you're watching a film, what I can say is that, typically when you're watching a film within about, I hate to say this, and it's going to break a lot of people's hearts, in about 10 seconds, whether or not the film's worth watching the next 10 seconds of.
Really?
Yeah. And I think like if you can get a minute into a film, like that's usually a pretty good thing. And like you try to watch everything as much as you can. You really want to give films a chance, but like sometimes it's just really, really obvious that like this film is not for us, or this film is not for the festival, or this film is just so beyond terrible that it's not worth watching. It's not worth wasting any more of my time on. And typically like for our process for the Boston Cinema Census, we made 3 piles. There was the A pile, the B pile, and the C pile. And the A pile was the films that we thought was exceptional. And we knew we wanted, for that show, we wanted about 2 hours. And so the A-list films were definitely going to get in. And then if you wanted to build up to that 2 hours, you would go to the B pile and sort of look at the best of the B plus films, if you will. Like films that were also, they were good that you wanted to mix in. And then in the C films, like there was no chance those films, they didn't make the cut, and you weren't going to show that. They might be appropriate for another festival, but you knew they weren't appropriate for your audience. And so you would kind of dismiss those. The other part of it with programming is that, especially when you're doing a short film package or you're grouping films together, is you really want to think about how are these films going to play next to each other, right? And Rochelle's heard my spiel on this probably a number of times. Like the way that I think of a 2-hour block of short films, for instance, it's called the short of it, so I'll talk about short films specifically, is that you really want to put the audience on an emotional journey. You want to start them in a place and you want to end them on a place. Yes. And you're using those films as the building blocks for doing that thing, right? Yes. So like if you have, let's say like 3 really heavy films that are kind of long, like you're not going to have those back to back at the end, because that's going to be kind of a gnarly way to end your show. You really want people to kind of end, typically I would say uplifted, not always. Sometimes you want to make a nice serious point at the end that has some gravity and weight to it. But I think if you want to really sort of make people feel uplifted, you sort of want to end with that film, right? And I think you want to have, something funny in there, and you want to have something kind of serious in there, and you want to have something a little bit weird in there, and you want to have something that kind of is sort of maybe eases the audience into what you're doing. So you're really kind of thinking about it like that. And that informs a lot of the decisions on how you're going to program and what films you're going to choose, right? Like it's one of those things I explain to people in class a lot. Let's say you make a film about a bike, and the kid's brother gets killed on a bike accident that's off screen somewhere, for instance. And you submit that film to a festival, and they've already say selected a film that's very similar to that, or they played that film very similar, really similar film to that last year. Like your chances of getting in at that point are basically nil, because they already have that, right? Or they've already done that. And so you kind of
just to cut. So it is more about. So film festivals are more about programming the film festival and what's working in the film festival, and that 10 seconds is really scary. But it's not so much that your film is horrible or great. It's just what works with that particular festival. Yeah. So we got to do, as filmmakers, we have to do our homework and find out what they're
100%. The more informed you are about the festival and what they play, the better. I've never submitted to a festival without reading their mission statement, without looking through what kind of films they've programmed in the past. I
haven't done as much of that.
Just to see if it's worth it. Yeah. And there's other things every film I've ever made, pretty much I submit to South by knowing I'm not going to get in, just because I want to force them to watch my movies. Quite frankly, I want them to know who I am, and
seriously,
maybe someday. I don't think so, but it's they will watch your films. Like what I can say, is the programmers at South by Southwest have been forced to watch at least 10 seconds of all of my films, right? I can say that. And clearly it didn't make the cut, which is fine. And like I said, with that festival specifically, the math is just against you. But yeah, Tony, in answer to your question, it's not just whether your film's good or bad. Like if it's bad, it's you're kind of screwed, right? Honestly.
Right. And hopefully someone has told you that before you go spend your money at film festivals.
Yeah. And I think though, but the film not only has to be good, it has to be good. It has to speak, I think, to the zeitgeist. It has to be new in some way, especially short films, like where you can be a lot more playful. Features are a whole different ballgame, but like shorts are often made by new or emerging filmmakers, right? Like big established, like Martin Scorsese is not submitting short films to South by Southwest. You know, like that's just not how it is. And so I think that you want to be sort of good. Right baseline, but then like I said, innovative in some way, doing something that's maybe a little bit different, like something that says, here's my voice and that my voice is different than other people's voice. Like I'm not just imitating what was cool 2 years ago, right? Like I'm doing something fresh and exciting and interesting, and you should program my film. And also I think, like it's part of what your festival does, and therefore it would be a good fit. Like that's really kind of what you're trying to do as a filmmaker.
I have to give a shout out to Roxbury International Film Festival, Lisa Simmons, woohoo! But she has that the film festival has shown so much love for Hull Bay Productions. So I just kind of wanted to say that. And we have another short film that we're shooting this summer, Hold This, and we are going to put that in the film festival. But I think in time, because I've been doing this with them for quite some time, that we have developed a relationship. They keep tabs on what we're doing. I've actually even gotten an email like, "Are you submitting anything this year?" And it's like, but so that's also another way to do it. Like, I think that once you get into a film festival, and if you do well, just stay in communication. And, they all have their emails up on the page and everything, and just say, hey, thank you for this, that, and the other. And, schmooze.
Yeah, and I would say 100% that, right? And I would even go as far as, I mean, obviously, like the programmers stick around for a while. So if they know you and they're already willing to support you, they're probably willing to continue to support you. Yeah. They have a vested interest in your growth and development at that point, and they want you to succeed. So they'll typically help you. So the more people you know, the better. Obviously, that's how this whole industry works. But even like when I'm in the submission process, if I've gotten into a festival and there's one downstream I haven't heard back from yet, I'll always write to them and be like, hey, by the way, I just got accepted into this festival. With shorts, you can kind of get away with that. With features, they always want to be premieres, Right. And the big festivals, they don't want to show it. Like if you've already shown your film, like they're sort of more hesitant because they want premieres also. But with shorts, so like the more buzz you have, the better. And especially when you're dealing with like tier 2 and tier 3 festivals. So like not Telluride, not South by Southwest, not Sundance, like, not Tribeca, but like a lot of the other festivals, they're still very, very good. Like if your film has gotten some traction and played in these other festivals, and you say, and they don't know you, and you're like, oh, by the way, I just want to let you know that this film got in this festival. That sort of says, oh, okay, maybe we should pay attention to this filmmaker because these other people thought that the film was good enough to put in, so maybe we should pay some attention to it.
Yeah. What about length?
Yeah.
The ideal length of a short film?
I'm gonna say some really brutal things about short films.
Do it.
And this is just my opinion. Again, having all the things I said about my involvement in short films over the last 2 decades. So take it or leave it. I used to run Open Screen, or co-host Open Screen also, by the way. So I've seen a lot of short films, in my life.
You did Open Screen. Okay.
And so here's what I think a short film should be. And this is going to be really dogmatic. And of course I go against this all the time. A short film should take place more or less in real time and be less than 10 minutes. That's the ideal short film. And it should also be a 1-act. That's what I think a short film should be. And I think that if you look at like very successful short films that play a lot of festival circuit, most of them mostly adhere to that, which is why I came up with that formula. Once you go past 10 minutes, you better be really, really solid to get up to 15. And if you go past 15, like, you better be like, I don't know, like, pick your favorite genius filmmaker person that like, it's really, really hard once you go past 15. Like it's like short film. They don't want to program that. 10 and 12 is kind of the sweet spot. I think if you wanted to get into every festival out there, make a really funny, sharp 4-minute film, and that will play. Yeah. Because short, funny films are great padding in programs, and everyone likes to laugh.
I'm pretty funny.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Not most of the time. I make you laugh all the time. What are you talking about?
I rarely laugh.
How are we on time?
We definitely pushed the line.
Okay.
But I thought we were saying some pretty valuable things.
No, we were.
Yeah,
We were.
People might groove on this. I don't know.
Yeah,
No?
they will.
Or give me a lot of
think
hate.
It's 50-50 nowadays.
Wait. Can I follow
Yeah,
up?
do
Follow
what
up?
you
Okay.
want.
What's too long for a short film?
If you say 20 minutes, I'm going to cry.
Do it.
Yeah, I really think when she like 15 is kind of it. Is like, and again, like I'm being hypocritical because of course I push this boundary myself, and I don't think any of my films would be described as funny or like they're either weird or very, very depressing, and or some mixture of both. And so like end of the day, I think you kind of as a filmmaker, you got to do your thing, right? Like you got to make the film that you want to make. And I think like why I'm saying what I'm saying right now is understand what you're up against. Like if you go against my little opinion over here, like that's fine, but understand where you're treading when you do that. Like that's really it for me. And so I think like, like again, so back to math, right? Like if I'm a festival programmer and I have a 60-minute short film block, how many 20-minute films can I program in there?
Right.
How many 4-minute funny films can I program in there? Right. Yeah. And filmmakers bring their friends and family, and filmmakers push their films on social media and everything else and help bring an audience into the film. And if you have a bunch of 20-minute films, like that just limits what your audience can be automatically, unfortunately. I mean, that's just the reality of what's happening. That being said, I remember one time at South by Southwest, they had specifically a block of films that were longer than the 15. They had it was like the long short block or something. And there was like 4 really, really good films there. So they, and again, incredibly innovative, wonderful, strange, amazing films. And one of which was a musical that I can still kind of vaguely remember. Like all took place in a parking lot, and it was like this. It was devastating and amazing, and a musical, and was 20 minutes long. So like, but it had to, like those films were all incredible. Not like, and if you went to like everything else was sort of like normal, really good. Like those were like, oh my God, like how did they even come up? Like how did that even happen? So, and of course, like we haven't even mentioned like things like budgets and stuff like that, which are also going to make people cry. So I'm just going to back away from it.
I'm still paying for the Do You Remember Me? But
yeah, I made a feature in 2003 that took me, I think, a decade and a half to pay off my credit cards because I went full in a credit card debt on it. And that film went nowhere. So,
when can we see that film?
Oh, that film was buried for a reason.
Films you need to see. That's the first one I need to show.
No one needs to see that film.
Come on.
Oh, no. So
No.
So in terms of a filmmaker, because we want to leave on an encouraging note, an uplifting note.
No,
that wasn't encouraging?
Something that's going to make you feel nice.
Yeah.
Film festival wins, whether it's semifinalists, finalists, or winners. How does that manifest in terms of the success of a filmmaker? I feel like I've done pretty well, damn well with film festivals, and I think that that's helping the success of what I'm doing. But what does that look like? And then the flip side to that is like not winning film festivals. What does that say about?
I would say honestly, I think just getting in as a win is the first thing. I mean, that's a jury selected selected, and if you get into anything like amazing, like that's so huge. And I think getting an award on top of that, all the better. And I think obviously, like it depends on the festival. Like, winning best short film at Sundance is different than winning, best short film at Joe Bob's Barbecue and Film Festival, right? Like, so like there's I
want to submit to that.
Me too.
There's levels. There's levels that some festivals matter more than others. But I think that like winning, like I said, it's a huge accolade, and it's one of those things like when you can, as far as like how it translates to success. I think like let's not kid ourselves. Like we've already talked about it. Filmmaking is about scrounging for money and about asking people for favors. Yes. I sometimes like compare it like like somebody else like, hey man, you want to work on my film? And it's like, that's sort of like the equivalent of saying, hey man, you want to help me move
Right.
this weekend? And you're like, not really, but you're my friend, so I guess I'll help you out. So
actually, that reminds me. I was going to ask you something. Do you want to work on my film?
great question.
I'm working on it. You might as well come on board. Zach.
So like asking, filmmaking, you're always asking people for money and you're always asking people for favors. And I think that, and that's just part of the gig. I mean, you do it because you love it, and hopefully you can kind of, if you're successful, I think it makes it's an easier ask, right? And I think like, especially if you're trying to get funding for a project, saying like, hey, none of my films have ever made it to a festival. You've never heard of me. I have no social media presence. I'm not on Vimeo. Will you give me $2 million to make my dream project? And it's like, that's not going to happen unless that's your uncle who wants to give you $2 million for some reason.
Or if your last name is Winfrey.
Yeah, or Coppola, right?
Coppola.
But as someone who doesn't have that nepotistic advantage, if you're like, hey, like I've gotten my film into X, Y, and Z film festivals. I was a finalist in this, and that. I won these awards. I got these accolades. Like I'm trying to raise, trying to get resources for my next film. Like that's a much easier ask at that point because you have a proven track record of success. It shows that you're serious. It shows that you get things done. It shows that you have a festival history. Like you're now much, much more viable as a filmmaker, I think. Like that's just the reality of it. So I think even getting in gets you that. And I think that beyond that, like anything on top of that, all the better. And the more festivals you get in, the better. Like it's just, again, sort of proof that what you're doing is quote unquote real. I've often described filmmaking as sort of like an act of insanity, if we can still say that. But it's like no one's asked you to do it, right? Mm-hmm. Like you've chosen for some reason to like lose all your money and annoy all your friends in order to make a piece of art that you for some reason have a dying reason to do. But there's like no really good reason to do it, right? But you do it because you love it and because you want to make the film a reality, and you're willing to kind of go through this process of doing it and do the festival thing, which means getting rejected, and that's part of it also. And like, it's filmmaking. You're gonna get rejected. Get used to it. It's a lot. Like
Hell
it's good for you. It builds character and like
something.
And when you get rejected, then you finally get into a festival. That is like the best feeling in the world. And
it really is.
And like going, for those of you who've never done it, like 10,000, 100,000 million hits on Vimeo, YouTube, awesome. Like until you sat in a theater, like a darkened theater in some state you don't live in, and they have no idea who you are. They don't even know that you're the filmmaker, and you're watching people react in real time to your work.
Best feeling
it's
ever.
Unreal. It is
Haley
the best.
was that. We went to Minnesota where we showed.
It's the best, right?
More Than Our Skin. Yeah.
Right. Like it's like that's like the chills on the back of the spine moment, because it's like not your friends and family like going, yeah, good job.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? It's a stranger laughing in the right place or crying in the right place or reacting or applauding in a meaningful way, and just like, and you know that you got them, and like, I guess I'm okay at this, right?
Yeah, no, for sure.
That's awesome.
Just need a little validation every once in a while.
Every now and again.
Oh my gosh, so much information, great information, Zach. Thank you so much for coming on the short of it. And I think that filmmakers out there, you all can be very, very optimistic. And I would say, just don't give up. If it's your passion, if it's your dream, it's what you want to do, just don't give up. Just keep doing it.
Unless you're bad at it, then stop.
Well,
just stop it. Stop making us watch that.
Yeah.
Stop it.
Yeah. Stop being competition to me in festivals. Like, just everyone stop.
Stop it. If you're not good at it, stop it. And send me your money.
Yes.
All right. Anyways, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
I'm Tony McGrath.
I'm Rochelle.
Yes, you are.
Oh, is this government name time?
No, you don't have to.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't use mine. So, yeah.
Zak Lee, thank you. And thank you all for tuning in. This is The Short of It.
The Short of It is brought to you by The Den Beauty Lounge. Visit thedenbeautylounge.glossgenius.com for more information and book your appointment today. Hey, we hope you enjoyed The Short of It. You can listen to The Short of It each Saturday right here on BroncoEyeRadio.com. Want to stay in touch with The Shorties? Follow us on Instagram at _The Short of It